no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
It's the size of Texas, Mr. President.
Get off my plane.
I see dead people. We're in the middle of a war. It's time to pick a side.
Welcome in to Duel of the Greats, Season 3, Episode 4. Tonight, I, your host, Nate, am uniquely qualified to be the judge for this episode. As our longtime listeners know, I do not go in for horror films. While we have been stuck the past 3 weeks in the nostalgia of the 90s, today we discuss two modern horror films. As modern as they can be, they both were released last year in 2024, Immaculate and The First Omen. We're very excited to be joining everyone this week. We have been getting a ton of feedback from our listeners, and we really appreciate everyone who is listening. We have a very exciting episode for you this week. Jeff will be Jeff, also our resident Catholic, which may
I was gonna say maybe I'm the one that's most qualified to be the judge. Maybe we screwed this whole thing up here.
Yeah,
I was wondering where you were going with the uniquely qualified, because if anything, yeah, okay.
I'm just uniquely qualified in that I am completely indifferent. I think I am the most indifferent as any judge has been so far this season. I watched both these movies for the first time, and I watched them with a total indifference. So, I mean that in a positive way. I'm ready to be convinced. Jeff will be defending the film Immaculate, which is an original film, whereas Steve will be defending The First Omen, which obviously you can tell probably by the title, is a prequel to the horror classic The Omen. So it's kind of part of a longer film franchise, which also in it of itself is an interesting comparison between the two films. Both films are about nuns who mysteriously get pregnant. They are shockingly similar films. I would say maybe in some way the most strangely similar films that we have seen so far. And we might talk a little bit about some of the politics of the United States that might have prompted some of the themes of these particular movies.
I was going to bring that up because this is like, they are strikingly similar, because the first movies that we've looked at, the first 3 weeks, they have the same premise, but the plots are actually, in some cases, like A Bug's Life and Ants, very different. And even, you know, Armageddon, Deep Impact, they focus on different things. But these, I mean, like, I told my wife, because she has seen Immaculate, but she hadn't seen The First Omen, and I asked, she's like, how similar are they? And I was like, strikingly so. I mean, from the first scene, it's almost identical in both movies. It's really weird.
Yeah, I don't think we have to look too far with these on the inspiration, the cultural zeitgeist that inspired them. You know, I said that was one of the things I'm interested in with this series. Both of them were made post Roe v. Wade, or right around the time of Roe v. Wade being overturned, and the lack of women's autonomy and all those good things that are just, you know, coming crashing down around us. I think this is definitely, you can see where these came from. You can see why they got greenlit when they did, unfortunately.
Did you guys both, again, I don't really go in for horror films a lot, so I watched these both for the first time just to do this. Jeff, I know you really love a term that I learned,
It's
nunsploitation, which is a very genre,
yes.
sub-genre of
Yes.
horror that involves...
You've gone down a deep, dark hole here.
Horror films involving nuns, of which there are actually, like, kind of a lot. Like, there's enough for that to be a subgenre.
I love horror movies. It's my favorite genre. I have not... I am aware of the nunsploitation subgenre, but I have... This is the furthest I've delved into it, to be honest. I'm sure...
The furthest he'll admit on camera.
Yeah. The furthest from not a streaming site, right? But I don't... I'm trying to think, like... I don't know, maybe like The Wicker Man is the closest, if any of you have seen that.
Are
and
there
that's not
nuns in
even
the Wicker
about a
Man?
nun. No, but it's like a religious cult, so
Oh,
that's like
true.
the closest thing. Um, and I'm talking about the original. I've not seen the Nicolas Cage version. I don't know if I ever will, but the original is fantastic.
You never? Oh, all right. Put a pin in that. We'll revisit that later.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be important to revisit later.
Bees?
By I know that's the only thing I know. I've never seen the movie yet. I just know that part. Um, so by virtue of a coin toss that I have already done as the judge, I am going to have Steve go first tonight in his defense of the First Omen. So, Steve, whenever you are ready, please tell us why you think The First Omen is the better of these two very similar films.
Well, first of all, I'm not defending anything. I'm advocating for something. So, may it please the court. I'm supposed to say, you may proceed, counsel.
You may proceed, counsel. Steve really gets into the legal jargon that we don't
I'm
we don't
telling you,
need to necessarily do.
He's
I
a,
want to
he's a
get
lawyer
a
by
silly
trade.
wig.
For those that don't know,
A silly
Yes.
wig and a robe. I almost have a robe here. I got my little poncho thing on. It's cold in my office. All right. May it please
Anyway,
the court.
go ahead.
It does.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, go.
There's not much that needs to be said about this because this is clearly far and away the better film. The First Omen wins because it's dripping in atmosphere and color and just vibrancy that leaps off the screen almost. It's got mega wattage star power. It has a magnetic lead. And overall, it's a horror movie. Both of these are horror movies. And this movie's genuinely terrifying. Not just gross out and gory, but genuinely scary. So, dripping in atmosphere, what could be more picturesque than the city of Rome? It's the holy city, the holy see is there. And they just took such pains to really capture the vibrancy of it. I think I've said vibrancy twice now. I'll probably say it 3 or 4 more times because that's what I felt about this just being in Rome in the 70s, 80s. What time period is this? It really catches, a certain period
I
though.
think I think it's
I don't think
supposed to be
either
in
one has a determinate time.
That's
Yeah,
true.
I think it's supposed to be
But-
because the Omen, the first movie came out in the 1970s.
Yeah,
And this
that's
is like
fair.
a direct prequel to that. I get a 70s vibe from it.
It's
Yeah.
very clearly like
I
a
think-
quote
I think
unquote
that-
period piece.
I was getting like a 70s or 80s vibe from Immaculate, but then they pull out a cell phone near the end, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, so it's at least like late 90s. So I'm not even sure. It's
Either way.
whatever it needs to be for that particular moment in time to make the
This
point plot.
is a Rome that it captures the sights and the sounds and just all the senses are abuzz. It makes me want to explore the back alleys. I mean, we go to clubs, we go to hovels, we go to what do you call it where nuns live? Whatever that is, a monastery?
Convent.
Convent, thank you. This is why we have a Catholic. That's why we keep you around.
You're welcome.
But it just every single shot is just it's soaked in this ether of a sense of place, and it just I love it. Again, that could be subjective, but I don't think so. I think it's true. It should ring true with everyone. Star power. This movie has some huge names that I wasn't expecting. To be clear, I haven't seen either of these movies either before we watched them. So when in the first scene we have Charles Dance and Ralph Ineson, I knew we were in for something good here. And then Charles Dance is in it for maybe a minute, 2 minutes, but he kills it before he gets killed. And it also establishes kind of the tone of this. It's
I'm sorry. I know it's your time, but I want to interject with a little fun fact. I know fun facts
right,
are your
all
thing,
right.
but I'm gonna. So, Charles Dance is in it. I don't know if you were aware, but the main actress played Myrcella Lannister in Game of Thrones.
yeah.
And Charles Dance was Tywin Lannister, who would have been her
Myrcella Baratheon. Baratheon, right?
Well, Baratheon, true, yes, Baratheon, but she is a Lannister as well. So she was Tywin's granddaughter. But actually, her name was Baratheon, but she was a Lannister through and through. If you know what I'm saying.
Oh, because she was
Yeah,
she was one of
she
the
was
Queen's
a fake.
kid.
Yeah,
Oh,
she was Cersei's daughter.
I remember her now. When I was reading what she had been in, for some reason I was thinking she was Stannis' daughter who gets burned. Spoilers for Game of Thrones. Sorry, but
Was she?
no, that's
I
Shireen.
thought she was. Yeah, because
I got the name wrong.
She was the one. She was the one that got sent to Dorne to be married and then was eventually poisoned.
We have wandered far afield here, much like the Catholic Church.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry, but I thought that once I found that fact out, I was like super excited, so I had to drop it. I had to. I'm sorry. I will shut up for the rest of your thing. I promise.
Hold him in contempt, goddammit. Throw the book at him.
Sorry.
Throw a gavel at him.
Sorry, I'm not sorry. I loved how much we wandered off topic.
I've
there.
been
Okay,
docked
sorry.
a minute
Steve,
from my time. I'm sorry.
Steve,
All right.
the floor is yours. Continue. First Omen, atmosphere, creepy, horror.
As I
film,
said,
scary,
wandered
go.
far afield, much like the Catholic Church, who wants to get back on track with a really stupid ass fucking idea. Let's birth the Antichrist. Which I'll give you this one. If we're gonna come up with plans, what to make immaculate births, is it A, let's bring Jesus back? Belief or not belief, everybody seems to agree he was a pretty good fella. Or let's make the Antichrist. One of these does not seem to quite work, but nevertheless,
I'm sorry to interrupt because I had the exact same thought in my notes of like the whole premise of this is like the world's becoming too secular, and it's like the plot could have been like maybe we could be more empathetic and speak to more marginalized communities. They went birth the Antichrist. That's what they went with.
it went straight to Plan Z.
They went straight to Plan Z. Okay, all right, go ahead. Keep
So
going.
I will admit that if we're gonna base the decision on solely which film had the better plan, I think Immaculate needs to win, and we just should all pack up and go home. But fortunately, we're not. So it's got this mega wattage star power. Charles Dance, Ralph Ineson, Bill Nighy plays an integral part in this. Nell Tiger Free, critically, I think, holds this movie up, and I do not think Sydney Sweeney. I don't think she has the chops to pull it off in Immaculate. She feels feels very wooden to me. She seems very, I don't know how to say this in the most, I don't know.
Sydney Sweeney ain't listening. You can say it.
What?
Sydney Sweeney's not listening to the podcast. You can say it. You can be mean if you want to.
No, okay. I literally just don't know if I have the vocabulary for it. She seems too American, whereas they both play Americans in Italy. But Sydney Sweeney is just kind of like a modern person just dropped in a strange situation. Whereas Nell Tiger Free plays someone with like genuine fear and, but also a curiosity about what's going on around her. And I don't know, I just bought the performance a lot more, and I think she really carried the whole movie. But most importantly, these are horror films. The First Omen is genuinely terrifying. I counted at least 2 times, 3, I think, in my notes here, where I wrote in all capitals, "Holy shit," because it was so just shocking and terrifying and just out, like off the wall. So I'm just going to go through a little checklist on these, and I'd be happy to get your guys' reaction on this as well. I think this thing just kept hitting them out of the park with just shots of things that I'd never seen before in a movie, and frankly, I never want to see ever again, but now they're seared into my fucking psyche. So, the first one, Charles Dance gets his head basically split open and then turns around with a bloody smile. That is an iconic shot right there, and that's in the first 30 seconds. I mean, obviously, probably like 2 minutes, but whatever. Oh, that's not really what I wrote, but this kind of fits in. Sorry, guys, I'm on all kinds of cold medicine. I got my wires crossed. We joked yesterday this was going to be my flu game, my Jordan flu game, but I've had another day to recover.
It's the exact same thing.
I mean,
it's almost the exact.
We look
same
nearly identical.
Thing. You do.
Michael Jordan is like no. That was my Steve game.
Yes, exactly.
But other terrifying, scary shots, even without showing too much. At the very beginning, when they're, what we later find out, it's images of someone being impregnated. But the shots of them with the hood, and she's breathing, and the hood is being sucked back to her mouth, and it's this sense of claustrophobia, and it's so terrifying, but it's also so just, you can't look away. It's compelling. The stylized blood from the pregnancy in that same shot, it's just crazy. Other times when a little bit of pulling back, not quite showing their hand, or just a little bit of subtlety is powerful. When she first goes into, is it Carlita, the little girl's room? There's just pure silence, which we hadn't really had up to that point. And just the sudden shift to that just ratchets up the tension. And I just found myself glued to this movie because of these things. The single coolest shot, maybe of this whole season so far, giant water wall, be damned, in Deep Impact. It's much smaller in scope, but when our heroine wakes up after the night in the club, and her black hair is splayed out on the bed, and her mascara is all running, and there's like a fucking spider, and like the colors and the whole wave is set up. That shot right there is one of the coolest shots I think I've ever seen in movies. I'm not even kidding. I thought that when I was taking the notes the first time. So we should win right there. It not only is it a cool shot visually, but it perfectly encapsulates her how disoriented she is by this whole scenario and where she is and what she's about to do and what's been done to her. We got the burnt corpse ghost of, I think it's Isabella. I can't remember it. The other nun that fucking hangs herself and burns herself. And we keep seeing her. That alone is fucking gross and terrifying. Then, oh man, I should have probably led with this, because the whole operating scene the operating room birth scene, is just horrific. And oh God, it's so good. The nun that says, because some girls are bad, and then gives a super little threatening look as she looks back to our main character. That sets up what we're about to see. Then the creepy, terrifying laughing that suddenly switches into an animalistic rage. This is terrifying stuff. And then probably the most what the fuck, I think I'm looking at my notes, I probably have about 60 exclamation points after this, after my all capped what the fuck. The demon hand being birthed.
I knew exactly where you're going with that.
Holy shit!
That was fucked up.
Not only was it fucked up, it was completely unexpected, and it just takes you so by surprise. I almost fainted. Nell Tiger Free fainted, and I almost fainted as well. That's genuinely scary. Later on, she fucking hulks her lover, Paolo. She just rips him in half because he got ran into by a car, and she just accidentally breaks him in two. That was a big problem for him. That'll ruin your weekend. And then,
no horror film is complete without a person walking backward into traffic and getting hit by a car. It's
easy money. It's easy money.
It's a strangely common trope that I've never seen anyone even attempt to do in real life, but it does happen in movies all the time. Final Destination has
Final Destination. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Just FYI. Anyway, sorry. Continue.
I mean, I could go on and on. I have, just a list of scenes, but these are all genuinely scary things. The C-section at the end, and how, that's one where it veers a little bit more towards the gore and the gross out. But the whole setup at the end with the chanting and the whatnot and the ritual, but it's just a very scary movie. Does the plot break down a little bit at the end with, why they've done what they've done? The Antichrist versus you have this power. Maybe we could just bring back the Lord of Light. Who knows? But where there's some things that are also a little too on the nose, like all the clones have the little 666 mark. I mean, come on now. We couldn't. The mark of the beast is that literal. That seemed a little silly. But this movie is also beholden to the Omen itself, so it had to kind of wiggle in and latch on to that movie. So I forgive it a bit of that. As a standalone movie, I was just wowed by it. I didn't have any expectations going in, and I think this is just, I think I gave it 4 stars, out of 5, which for me is pretty good. I thought a genuinely really, really good movie. Immaculate, I didn't feel that. And I think there's a couple reasons why. Sydney Sweeney, I don't think could carry it. Like I said, I don't think it's not her as an actress. I just think for the role, it just doesn't feel right. I feel like she lacks some of the kind of innocence that Nell Tiger Free's character has. And I don't know why. There's nothing in particular, that it's just kind of a vibe I can't. You're muted. I don't know what you're saying. I'm sure it was inappropriate.
I meant to stay muted, but I'll address that. I'll address that.
We're live. We don't want to. Don't do anything that'll get you canceled. But also, not only is I don't think Sydney Sweeney's acting quite does it for me. Not to say she's a bad actress, but just in this role, I wasn't buying it. But the setting I don't think is as compelling. I think they're going for this beautiful Tuscan countryside. The incongruity of that and the horror that we're seeing, I think that's what's supposed to be the hook there. But to me, this being in Rome in the First Omen really gives everything a sense of stakes. We know, we're in a city. We can see all these people's lives that are going to be affected. In the convent in Immaculate, it doesn't have the sense of claustrophobia and everything just bearing down the weight of history, let alone literal, people and neighborhoods on top of our setting where we're at. And then also, it's not as scary. Immaculate isn't. It's very big on gore and gross out horror. The tongue getting cut out, the breathing of the blood, the way she beats in the mother nun's face or whatever. That's all really bloody and really gory, but I didn't find it as scary. So to sum it up, it's that simple, I think. First Omen, it's got atmosphere, it's got star power, and it's scary as shit. It's got a demon hand coming out of a fucking person, man.
All excellent points, Steve. I have yet to be convinced, but again, I'm looking at all of this in a very indifferent way. So I would like to hear now Jeff, and again, our resident Catholic, talk about Immaculate and see if maybe he can bring some of those Catholic vibes to his interpretation. Jeff, go ahead. The floor is yours.
May it please the court, I will advocate for Immaculate here. So I if there's anything that I can bring to this, it's Catholic vibes. My 12 years of Catholic school may finally come in handy. So first, I want to talk about why I love horror as a genre, why I love horror movies, and why I think that makes Immaculate the better of the horror movies, right? I see this come up, and not only do I like horror movies, I like horror books too. It's my favorite genre of books to read. And that often comes up like, okay, people say, why do you like horror movies, or why do you like to read horror books or whatever? And personally, my feeling has been that the horror as a genre has more to say and does say more about the human condition and humanity than just about any other genre. And it uses the supernatural aspects to do that through an easily understood metaphor that makes it more effective in many cases, right? A monster, okay? A monster can represent many different things. Or you look at Frankenstein, the Frankenstein's monster that he created is he's trying to play God. It's pretty clear here, which is funny because that was actually one of the words that was used, one of the lines that was used in the movies here. So it's that's why I love horror movies, and that's why I think Immaculate is better, because I think while both these movies certainly try to have something to say, I think Immaculate succeeds at it to a far greater degree. Now, one of the reasons, if you remember last week, that I said that I wanted Immaculate, and one of the reasons that I wanted Immaculate was because I knew I had heard that this was a pretty big passion project for Sydney Sweeney, the lead actress in it. And, she's relatively new to Hollywood. Seems like she's not new because she's everywhere now. She's in all kinds of stuff. But, in terms of her career, she's only been around for like 5 years or so. And so I'm like, okay, such a young actress in Hollywood to have such a seemingly weird passion project like this, because another passion project that she's doing is Barbarella, right? Like the Jane Fonda movie. She's going to remake that. So Sydney Sweeney, Barbarella, totally makes sense. I'm tracking, right? But Sydney Sweeney, Immaculate, playing a nun who gets pregnant, this is a little weird or a little just unexpected. Why would she choose it? Now, that's why I wanted to see the movie initially and why I was hoping I got it this week, which it did. Now, immediately with Immaculate, we first know sort of that the movie is is going to, in terms of how it views the Catholic Church and how it views some of the issues that it's going to go over in the movie, it's not going to hold anything back, right? Because on her very first morning in the convent, Sydney Sweeney wakes up. She finds this other woman in the bathroom who is talking to her, and she's like, "Oh, I had to leave because my her church, I can't remember the word she used, like her church was no more, whatever." And the woman at the other nun asked her, "Oh, did the priest get in trouble?" And we all know what that's about when it comes to the Catholic Church, right? Talking about sexual abuse, etc. So that they're making it very clear that, okay, this is a world where we know there's some sinister stuff going on. The characters, some of them know that there's sinister stuff going on, but exactly what that is, we don't know yet. And Steve, you mentioned that you didn't think Sydney Sweeney was able to carry the role, and some of the things. It's weird because some of the things that you mentioned about why she couldn't, I agree with, but I think that's exactly why she could and why she was great in the role, right? So Sydney Sweeney it has a sort of a sort of vocal fry tone to her voice, and it doesn't necessarily work in every role, but there are like she in The White Lotus, she was a sort of disaffected youth and as a teenager in season 1 of The White Lotus. She was very good in that. And in this case, I think it really works to her benefit because the idea of her character is that she's so sort of green, so naive, that having this sort of this vocal fry to it has sort of it allows her the earnestness of the character to really show through, because it feels like she doesn't even realize that she's doing it, because she doesn't even realize how the world perceives her. She's so naive that she doesn't understand that, and I think that is a really effective. It's really effective for her role in the movie. I think like there's just the imagery in the movie itself is very powerful. We've got the when they introduce the stake that was used, apparently that was used on Jesus. It evokes the stigmata. For those who aren't Catholic, may not know, the stigmata is the 3 sort of wounds that Jesus had, right? Through his hands, he was nailed to the cross. Through his feet, he was nailed to the cross, and then also through his, he was stabbed in his side by a Roman spear. And the stigmata itself is something that can happen. There was actually a movie in the 90s called Stigmata. Actually, I think there was another, but anyway. But there was a movie called Stigmata where it was about this woman who and it's happened apparently in the Catholic Church before. I don't know if it's ever been proven, but there have been people that have said it, where people will spontaneously have these wounds that will happen to them, and it essentially means they're essentially like a living saint, right? And they've been chosen for some greater purpose, something, what have you, So there's automatically that imagery right there, and then you go further. You've got the scene where we don't know if it's a dream or if it's actually happening to her, where she gets like pulled through the wall after the confession, and then there's like this stabbing, and it's clearly a scene that's invoking a feeling of rape, and that's unfortunately a very heavy topic, but that's clearly where it's going there, and the lack of choice that she has in the matter. And I thought that was just a very powerful scene, because then she's waking up and she's like, especially because it's in confession, right? She gets stolen essentially from the confessional, and there's this sort of juxtaposition that I think is unfortunately very common with sexual assault survivors. Is this my fault? Did I do something to cause this? And there's also, on top of that, there's even the additional layer of just something that, as a Catholic, I know about, the Catholic guilt, right? Of just, I'm not good enough. I'm not pure enough. This isn't, this is why this is happening. This is why they have confession. Because I believe Catholicism is the only Christian religion that has confession. I don't think any other ones do. Maybe they do, but I'm not sure off the top of my head. Um, then you've got the idea of, Steve, you brought it up at the top, and I completely agree, especially with both these movies coming out post, not post Roe v. Wade, but post the essential. It's not a repeal because it wasn't a law, but the overturning of Roe v. Wade. This idea of women's bodily autonomy. So when they first discover that she's pregnant and she's in the room sitting there with three men, she's sitting down, they're standing up. They clearly have this power dynamic over her, and they're sitting there and they're talking amongst themselves. They're even talking in a different language there, and she's like, what are you talking about? What's going on here? And they don't tell her what's happening, and they sit there and they describe the status of her hymen to her and to each other, almost completely ignoring her and not even asking her about her own health. They ask her if she had sex with a man to be pregnant, and that's the only thing they ask her. And this is a very common issue for women when it comes to healthcare, right? They don't a great amount of women don't feel like doctors listen to them. They don't feel like they can get good care because doctors don't understand and don't respect what they say and what they tell them. And I think you have that sort of on display here. That's just kind of the first scene, and then it goes on even further, right? Because after she was attacked in the bath by another nun who was jealous of her position of being impregnated, all the people are like, oh, the baby's okay. The baby's okay. And she's like, hey, I'm not okay. And they essentially just ignore her. They don't care. And, in the context of the story, it's because we all know it's because, well, they only wanted her for her womb anyway. But, the greater context of having that movie released now in the wake of everything that we're currently going through as a society, you've got this idea of just, they're putting the baby ahead of the mother, which is something that's unfortunately all too common in America, especially in America. We've got, then we've, there's on top of all this sort of aspect of all the women's issues and women's right to choose their bodily autonomy, we've also then kind of layer in some of these religious issues as well. Like one of the elderly nuns sneaks into her bed, into her room at night, and cuts her hair, and then creates this cross out of her own hair, like it's a holy artifact, right? And they're sort of revering her. They're like, oh, we love you, etc. They're revering her as this false idol. And it's this whole sort of juxtaposition of like raising up her and possibly this idea of raising up women only to just tear them down and to use them for their essential just their ability to procreate, right? And we have like even down to the scene where she sort of fakes the miscarriage, and she's in the car, and they figure out what's happening before they can get to the hospital. And she gets out and she's running. It's hard to be more clear than what's happened. She's running away from all this and trying to ditch this baby, this responsibility that she doesn't want, that she never wanted. And they chase her down and they pull her back, and they tie her down to a chair, and they brand her feet so that she can't walk. They do not give her a choice in this matter. And this is where I think it goes further than the First Omen did. And I think the fact that the First Omen had to be sort of tied into the Omen universe, it kind of hamstrung itself a little bit. There's the scene where in the First Omen, the character is going to the hospital to get an abortion, and I'm like, okay, this is, they've got something to say. They're taking this through, and then they sort of take the easy way out. They just have a car crash and they end that scene, and then they sort of stop right there. Whereas with Immaculate, they take it further and they fully explore this issue, and they show how she's being tied down. She's not given a choice in this matter. And then I mentioned the attack from the other nun. You know, then we've got on top of all this stuff too. You learn this other idea of that women in our society are constantly pitted against each other, and so much of how they're pitted against each other is dealing with their ability to procreate, because you're seeing, you know, women, oh well, why haven't you had any kids yet, and you should have kids, and all this kind of, it's expected of women so much more than it is of men. And this woman attacks Sydney Sweeney's character Cecilia in the bath and is like, "Oh, it should have been me. It should have been me." And she's so upset, and it's, you know, it's this jealousy, this rage from not being chosen, when in fact we all know it's a this, as we learn through the end of the movie, it's a demon mutant baby. This is not something that's a good thing, but she still wanted to be chosen for this, you know, this, and she's mad at the other woman, not mad at the men who made the decision not to choose her. She's mad at the other woman for being chosen, right? Like this is, there's so many of these things that I was not expecting from this movie to really sort of have this sort of analysis of where of how women have to make their way in the society, that I think it does so well. And I think it just did. So I'm trying to go through all my notes here, make sure I got everything.
You're muted.
Whoops, sorry, actually hit the mute button.
Too excited.
And then too excited. And then, you know, then you've got even they throw in some issues of male toxicity and male rage as a factor of women, and they're just their attempt to have a choice over their own bodily autonomy just makes it such, like the when she talks about you know, she tried to get rid of the baby, and then after she's finally tied down, the head priest who's doing all this stuff, who's doing all the ex-biologist who's making all these mutant babies, he's talking about how all these miscarriages they'd had in the past and all these babies that didn't work out, they're his fault, they're his failures and all this stuff, when, you know, he's trying to he's trying to use these women to claim something for himself, and he gets so upset when she tries to make a decision on her own. And it's just there's all these, so many things that I just was like, man, I can totally see why Sydney Sweeney would make this a passion project and why she wanted to do it. And frankly, I was surprised at how well that she was able to pull it off. And then finally, you know, even at the end, I think it really sells her performance at the end when the camera just unflinchingly doesn't, one of the very most powerful scenes I've seen in a long time, just the camera unflinchingly does not move and stays on her face as she's standing and gives birth to this mutant thing that we don't hardly ever see, except for like a really just off the side of the screen, barely. And she's screaming, and you see the pain and the anguish, and it's just everything that she had been experiencing and internalizing that whole movie, and it just all comes out of her, literally and figuratively. And then it ends with her taking this rock and making the decision to end it all, and to destroy this mutant freak baby, whatever it was that we never got a good look at. And I just thought that was a perfect way to encapsulate it. And the ending of the First Omen, I thought wasn't nearly as good. And I don't necessarily know that it's the fault. I mean, it's clearly the fault of the First Omen, I should say, but it's the fact that it has to tie into this Omen universe that they've already created. So it was a little bit hamstrung. It had to they had to be, oh, the baby was born and we call it Damien, and everyone knows that it's like, okay, yeah, great, we knew that was coming. So I definitely thought, you know, Immaculate ended that later, and I forgot to mention this when I was talking about Sydney Sweeney's performance. What I was saying when I was muted is, the reason that you don't think she's innocent enough, I think, is projection, because you know Sydney Sweeney is this. We all know Sydney Sweeney is this very.
I've literally
very
I don't think
ingenue.
I've seen her in anything else. No, that's not
Yeah,
true.
but she's in pop culture as, like, I mean, there
But
was
you
an
know me, I
entire.
don't follow pop culture. I don't.
Oh, sure.
I literally didn't know who she was like a year ago when gosh, what was it that she was in? And you were like, Sydney Sweeney. I'm like, I don't know who you're talking about, man. Do you not remember this?
I mean, she's hardly
She
been
did
around.
blow up. She did blow up very quickly.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, this is maybe our age showing.
You
a
keep
little
your
bit,
projection
but,
away
like,
from me, both of you.
I'm
There
just
was
saying
there was
it does feel like sometimes there's celebrities, and I do feel like it happens so fast now where I'm just like, Jesus, this person is inescapable, and I didn't know like what they did or who they were six
she was
months
in like
ago. And she
4
has a
movies last year. So
yeah,
yeah, she
she's got a
definitely
little
blew up really quick. But there was like an entire she hosted Saturday Night Live, and there was like an entire news cycle dedicated to a certain political party in this country that was obsessed with her chest size, and it was a whole thing. So it's projection, Steve. Don't you project your whatever onto my movie. So anyway, I rest my case on why Immaculate outdid the First Omen in everything that both movies tried to do.
That was thoughtful, well developed, compassionate. Wrong. All of it was wrong.
You're wrong.
here
Is
is going
in the words of the priest in Immaculate, if I am wrong, may God strike me now.
To be clear, I
Or
don't
no,
really think you're wrong.
no. He said why hasn't God stopped us? So why hasn't God stopped me in my argument if I'm wrong?
He tried multiple times. Did you not?
That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
yes.
Okay. Strike that. Strike it from the record.
God was like, I turned off your damn computer. I kept crashing
I
it. You
froze
kept
it
signing
twice.
back
What do you want?
on.
What more do you want from me?
Here is, as the judge, here is what I think is going to be, and I'm going to admit this is a problem with me. I didn't realize this at the beginning when you started, and now I'm beginning to recognize it as a problem. I think you both make really great points. I think you both ultimately end up kind of defending the points that it's going to come down to sort of a subjectivity of what kind of horror films you like. Um, some people like something like The First Omen, which I think leans a little heavier to the to suspense, to you know, kind of building an atmosphere, kind of a vibe. Whereas Immaculate, which does that too, Immaculate does that, but Immaculate is also it leans more toward the gore and kind of the body horror, which that is itself a big part of horror films, and there's certainly a genre element to that, and I think it's going to be kind of a matter of which one, what kind of movie
See, I'm gonna.
is your preference.
I know you're the judge, but I'm not necessarily pushing back. But I'm gonna say it's interesting because when Jackie my wife was asking me to describe the difference, I said the First Omen was more of a body horror. Mostly thinking of the scene of the demon hand reaching out of the vagina. That's a big one. It's a big body horror thing there.
I don't disagree with the body horror of that. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of
Yeah, they
overlap in
both
this movie.
have exactly.
And yeah, no, there's certainly elements of body horror in the First Omen. I just think that Immaculate leans on the gore a little bit more. I agree with a point that Jeff made in that the First Omen is a little bit shackled. Immaculate's ending, I think, just as an impartial judge, is a little bit more shocking. There's just something a little bit more immediate and kind of unsettling about it. Whereas the First Omen is a little bit more beholden to it's a prequel. It has to fit in um, to this series. I don't, I'm gonna give you each another. I feel like
He's
I've kind of made my
waffling. He's
I feel like I've made my
waffling.
decision. Yeah, I feel like I've made my decision. I want to give you each another opportunity, though. So, Steve, I'm going to let you go first if you have any final thoughts. Jeff, I'm going to let you go again if you have any final thoughts. And then I'm going to go ahead and make my decision.
If it's really this much of a toss up, then I think you have to look at it from a purely quantitative perspective. And I agree that the ending of Immaculate is a little bit better. If we could splice these two movies together and the first 95% of the First Omen be the way it is, and then instead of them doing the C-section, she manages to escape, and then has the baby with the shot framed on her face. You know, if we're combining these here, the shot is framed on her face, and then she smashes it with a rock or something. If we had grafted that onto the First Omen, I think that'd be the best movie out of all three of these. First Omen, Immaculate, and this hypothetical hybrid.
The Immaculate Omen.
The Immaculate Omen. The first Immaculate. It didn't work that way. However, we can't do that. So you got to take it percentages. And you're clearly up in the air. 95% of the First Omen is better than Immaculate. We'll give 5% of Immaculate. But, I mean, do the math there, Chief. And you know what? I didn't want to do it again, but I'm going to say this. I'm going to appeal to the heavens again. You know, if you haven't seen the signs in this recording here of who the big guy up there wants you to pick, I mean, God help you, literally.
Okay, so Steve making a final appeal to a deity, um, uh, um, which is, I think, a first for our
Bold.
podcast. It's bold, and we're gonna accept it. Jeff, your final thoughts before my decision.
So I think that with Immaculate, you have a movie that is really going for it, that is not hamstrung by being a part of any sort of a universe, and more effectively tackles the topics that both movies try to present. Whereas, you know, the First Omen finds itself in it gives too many easy answers. We see the monster, right? Literally, it's like a wolf demon thing. We see it happening. They give us the Damien at the end. They do, you know, all this stuff that it's just like it certain things that had to happen in the movie. Immaculate has more freedom, and it uses that freedom to a greater extent, where it's able to really tackle these topics in a way that's more interesting than the First Omen was. Boom. There it is.
You both honestly made really good points. This was actually harder than I thought it was going to be. Um,
Agony.
am
You look like
going-
Sydney Sweeney at the end of Immaculate right now.
You know, the
I
God of the
do.
Old
And
Testament would not be nearly as indecisive as you're being right now.
people often mistake me for Sydney Sweeney. Um, I
It's
am
the hair.
going to, and I, yeah, Sydney Sweeney and I both have great hair. Um, um, I almost feel bad, and because what I just said
Almost.
about the subjectivity of like what kind of horror films do you like, and I feel like ultimately I'm going to pick more along the lines of what I like. I am going to say that The First Omen is the better film. Um, and I feel bad for two reasons. One, it's because Jeff is still putting up goose eggs and has not won yet. And I really do feel bad for him because he actually made really good arguments. I think that a couple things hurt Immaculate. Um, First of all, I do think the First Omen is a little bit scarier. There's some images in the First Omen that I just have stuck with me. They're a little more iconic. The nun taking off the habit and going up and hanging herself and lighting herself on fire, and that look on
Burning
her face.
corpse ghost.
Yes, yeah. And the burning corpse. That was actually, of either of these movies, watching them at home, that particular moment in the First Omen, when she comes out of the first, she's like, you hear her voice, and then she slowly starts to emerge. That was, I think, the scariest scene of either of these films. And then kind of when she opens her mouth and does that scream thing, that was my like one true like jump scare, like where I literally startled at that. Um, this isn't your fault, Jeff. The point that Steve was trying to make, to me, it
Jeff
just
looks
does.
You're
so sad.
gonna make Steve's point for him. You're gonna
I'm not going to make Steve's point. I can, first of all, I will hold you in contempt. I can do anything in my courtroom that I want to do. Okay. Sydney Sweeney feels to me like a movie star playing a nun. And I don't know why that I can't shake that. I don't
She
really lose
is.
her, and but no, the other actress.
Called
Suspend
acting.
disbelief. It's a fucking
It's
movie.
called acting,
It's a
Jeffrey.
movie.
I just
Fuck.
it's harder. It's harder
Was
for
Jack
me
Nicholson?
to.
Did you really feel like he was an astronaut in terms of endearment? Like, yeah, really nailed it there, Jack.
I will
Goddamn.
tell you. Jack Nicholson is honestly an actor that I struggle to lose in movies as well. I'm admitting that's kind of a weird.
You picked a bad example.
But you can still respect the performance, the Academy Award-winning performance.
Sure. I can absolutely still respect. I'm not saying Sydney Sweeney's a bad actress. I'm saying that her
I never said that
nun,
you would, or I never said that's what you said.
Her
it just
supposed stardom maybe works against her here.
It does. And that's not Jeff's fault. It's not Sydney Sweeney's fault. It's not the movie's fault. It's just if I'm
It's
looking
your
at these
fault.
movies, it's my fault. And there, I want to also just say, as someone who again came into this completely indifferent, both these movies are ridiculous. They don't make any sense. They're both completely outrageous. I actually really disliked both of the movies. Now that they're over and done, these movies are not my thing. Which in some ways I think maybe made me qualified to be the judge. I do feel like if I'm gonna go in for horror, I'm going to go in for, and I'm admitting this bias. I've admitted the bias. I'm going to go in more for like, okay, this was more suspenseful. Whereas Immaculate, particularly at the end, and the tongue cutting scene, or it's really going for this
Fingernails.
sort of the shocking gore of it all. And
That
again,
is so bizarre because I woke up the next morning after seeing it and I was talking to Jackie and I was like, it was way more gory than Immaculate. Like that's so weird that you, and this is not me being critical or trying to push back. I'm honestly just kind of perplexed by that.
you know what I think it is? I think that it's almost like people's perception of gore. There's something about blood that
Yeah.
is more of like an in your face gore, and Immaculate has more blood. And that's interesting. That I think that's an interesting point, Jeff. That like you could kind of make the argument that the First Omen has more body horror, but in a different kind
No,
of way.
I think by pure body horror, I do think Immaculate takes the win, but because it's the fingernails,
That is
the
shocking.
tongue cutting, all the stuff that's going with the pregnancy. Body horror is in and of itself, stuff that's rooted in
I
the
don't
body. Well,
The-
I know you do, but like it's
the-
rooted in the mysteries of the body itself. Whereas the First Omen, it's things that are happening to the body from an outside cause. Like the guy getting ripped in half. Yeah, we see his guts, but it's not, him like a traditional body horror. He's not like dwelling on what's inside of him, and it's not dredging up the
Right,
same
but I'm
fears.
not saying
Whereas-
that part is body horror, right? But
Well,
like,
I know,
the-
but I'm just using that as an example. What's another
Sure.
one you said? The hand coming out of the vagina.
I mean, that was one of the most striking. I cannot believe they showed that.
I know. I can't.
thought they were-
Apparently, it
I thought
almost
they
got
were-
an NC-17 rating.
I thought they
because
were
of
going
that.
to show. I thought they were just going to show the reactions
Yeah.
to her, but they showed that, and I was like, holy fuck, that is a scene. And I commend the First Omen for that. That was yeah.
I think in my mind, what makes that switch from body horror into straight up, demonic suspenseful horror is it's a demon hand. Like, say, same shot, same setup and everything, but instead of seeing the vagina and the demon hand come out of it, say we just see like movement under her belly. You know what I mean? Kind of like in something like The Substance or something like that. And like where something that's not natural is in there. And then, they cut away. That to me is body horror, whereas this is more.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that one. I mean, it's like because you look at it and you say, okay, this demon hand reaching out. Well, we know it's a demon hand, but it's like if you look at that and all you see is a demon hand, and you're not thinking about, okay, what is this demon hand representing? What feelings is this evoking in me? Then I think that's a failure on the movie. And I personally don't think that scene failed at that, because I think in me it evoked feeling and made me think of like, okay, this is something I don't want that's trying to claw its way out of my body. And that is where it comes into body horror for me, as opposed to just looking at that like, oh, thank God, it's just a demon, you know. And I know
Yeah.
that's not what you're thinking of, but
I mean, I guess this is just one of those things where it's going to be subjective to an extent how we define these things. But clearly the judge is on my side, so
I have made three
Well, again,
fantastic arguments for 3 movies that I was hamstrung
you
with.
can appeal. You can appeal.
and-
Don't forget, you've still got that pocket appeal.
I-
You can toss it up to the judge.
this would be an interesting one because I don't think he's really
It's the
expressed his
appellate
opinion
court.
yet.
That's
You
true,
don't really
Brandon.
know what he thinks. No, you can't take a temperature now and figure out what he thinks before you appeal it.
We have the last 3 weeks.
You have to lodge the
He's
appeal.
given-
Well,
he's given his-
now
he's
I've
given
given my
his-
opinion when it's done, when you guys are done talking, not when.
There's been a
Yeah,
this thing has gone final. No one has
I'll
appealed.
just say, look at the list of movies
Whoa.
and make
Are you
an idea.
appealing or not? Okay,
I gotta be
sorry.
honest. Until this very moment, I did not realize that we had to make the appeal the week of. I thought we were gonna be able to wait and decide. So. I
Oh well,
guess
that's asking a lot of
it's
Brandon.
appeal.
That's asking him to remember his thoughts for all the episodes.
I've been keeping
13
notes
weeks
so
later.
far. So, but my this is to all of you, not to Jeff. I would look at your list of movies because with the pattern we have going here, you can kind of guess which 2 movies one of you may be a part of, and really consider before you just go, is this the one I want to put my stake in? So I guess my question then would be, Jeff, do you want to appeal or not?
This movie
Yeah.
or this week? No, not this week.
Okay. So I don't have a lot of notes of opinions here, but there's a couple things I do want to talk about. It's weird hearing how you guys talk about suspense versus horror and all this other stuff, because minus the last 15 minutes of Immaculate, I felt like it was just a suspense movie with gore in it. I feel like, to me, it felt like First Omen is more of a true horror story because of the supernatural aspect of it. Whereas to me, Immaculate just felt like a whole lot of weird science somebody made up to do
It
something.
was more tropey than Immaculate.
Oh,
was.
well, yeah,
Not in a
100%.
bad, not in a bad way,
No.
but just
No,
that it
for
used
sure.
more horror.
Yeah,
tropes
that's
than
like-
Maybe
Immaculate
to me, that's what makes it. Body horror. I think of as something more. Instead of there being an outside force, an outside either supernatural or something else, Well, I guess though it's an outside force in Immaculate too. It's just, it's a perversion of a natural thing instead of a completely supernatural thing
Right.
that is causing it.
And the only other thing I just wanted to say about this, because that's really my only, I find it interesting to hear how other people view horror compared to how I do, because I think I get into the more unknown aspect of horror, like the idea of a demon, as opposed to somebody just doing weird fucking science to somebody, like how I see those two things and how it's presented. But outside of that, I do want to say everybody here watch these movies on Hulu?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I believe so.
Do all of you have commercial free Hulu?
Interestingly, I access it through Disney Plus.
Same.
I
Yeah.
Well,
most
still,
of these movies through Disney Plus.
Well, even with
No,
Disney
but it-
Plus,
when you have it-
if you have
Yeah,
ad,
you can upgrade it, but I have not.
okay,
I
so
had
yeah,
commercials.
I watched it with commercials. Yeah.
the moment the tongue was cut out of the girl in Immaculate, there was an ad break for Febreze.
What was it for? What was it for?
For Febreze. And they literally
Febreze.
ripped this tongue out of this girl, and there's all this, and all of a sudden,
Colgate. brushing your
bright.
teeth.
It was a bright blue screen. Febreze, and my wife and I died. Like we were like. So it was just all of a sudden we started paying attention more to the ad breaks during these movies. Of, oh my God, where's this ad break gonna be? Like, is it gonna feel inopportune, or is it gonna feel like the biggest joke that they've tried to portray in this whole thing?
Yeah, can they have somebody that just watch these movies, put these ad breaks in? Jesus, like it's not just these movies. That's all.
Well, right.
But this
Sounds
is our
like
life
a
now.
job for AI.
That's probably where they're at, or that's probably what's been doing it. This is our life now. This is society.
Oh, I got to prep for the next episode here, don't we? What are the next 2 movies, gentlemen?
All right, just end it. Just end it.
What? What? No, what?
That's what Jesus said when he looked down at the centurion. Scared,
it.
glistening in the
It is
sun.
done. It is done.
So it is
Oh.
written.
All right,
So
well-
it is done.
Well, if you've go ahead, if you've stuck with us this long, hit us
It's
up.
quite-
Hit us up on the socials because we now have we've gained some followers. We're happy to have some new listeners. Instagram is at Duel the Greats. TikTok is Duel Podcast. We also have an email where we accept suggestions and just notes about the show if you have any that sometimes we might bring up. That
Shout
is
out
Duel
to
of the Greats.
Donald for emailing us. Thank you for your kind words.
Donald, yes, he's the. I think is he the first person that we do not know
The Duel of the
personally?
Greats email. Yes.
That we don't know personally. Yes, we've gotten emails from my mom. Thank you, Mom. Love you. We appreciate your input.
Hi, Mom.
Sam, I think Sam emailed us at one point.
Sam
or-
did. Sam
or
emailed
maybe
us.
he just
emailed
from-
us.
Yes, he did. I'm looking at it
Um,
right here. So
But Donald, if you are listening, we got your email. You will always be, no matter how big this gets, you will always be the first email we got from someone we don't know personally. So
thank you. It really does
Oh,
mean a
man.
lot because
It actually was really cool. Like we were super excited about it. We were all texting
Yeah.
about it. So it was really cool.
it's.
So that's
I was gonna get philosophical for a second. I was talking to my wife last night, and I said, it's really cool that I've gotten this far in life without much of a creative output or an outlet rather. I write sometimes, but not very much. But I was like, it's really cool that something that I dreamed up, not alone, but Jeff, remember when we were sitting in our cube, and we were talking about this and we're coming up with the topics and all that. It's cool that something we had in our head is now out in the world for other people
It's
to
real.
share. It's very neat. So
Like a
sorry.
demon hand crawling out of our, our collective vagina. It came, and now here we are. Glad I could. I'm so glad I could put that image in your guys' head. I hope we get an email. about it.
yeah.
Oh, I can imagine what kind of email we might get from that. All right.
So what Brandon, take it. What are we doing here next week? What's the story?
Next week, I got it.
Okay, I'll let Jeff
You
take
got
it over.
Okay. Oh well, no,
It's-
you can. But it's next up is No Strings Attached and Friends with Benefits. No Strings Attached with Natalie Portman and Ashton Kutcher, and Friends with Benefits Justin Timberlake and Mila Kunis. So
And who's our judge next week?
me. If we're going in the same order,
If
that
we're
we did
doing
last
if we're
time,
doing
then
the same rotation, it would be Jeff.
Yeah.
Okay, so then Brandon, you gotta flip. So
Well,
Jeff,
spin
you
that
have to
wheel.
assign a name.
Jeff-
Put the two movies. Did you put the two movies on the?
I got the two movies on my thing, so I need
on
to
the wheel
know.
of decision-making
I need
power?
you to know
Steve,
who.
Steve is first. That's the decision.
Steve is first. So now the question, Steve, which of the two movies would you prefer?
I could not care less. I
I shockingly saw both these movies in theaters.
did you really?
I have a preference. I strangely have a preference here.
I
Let's see-
haven't
I'll
seen
see if
either
we
of
get it.
these.
I saw Friends with
would've-
Benefits in theaters.
I remember thinking one was better, and I'm not going to say which one since I'll be the judge.
I
but
would have
am
gladly gone my entire life. The rest of that, however long or short it may be, never having seen these films. But
Well,
you know what? This is what I'm doing for you guys.
Since Steve doesn't care, I'll ask you, Nate. Do you have one you would prefer?
I really enjoy. But this is very strange. My wife and I actually really kind of enjoy the movie Friends with Benefits, which is the one with Justin Timberlake and Mila Kunis. So, I don't even think I'm trying to think if I've even seen No Strings Attached, that I don't know that I have. So maybe my preference is just because I've seen the other one and not No Strings Attached.
By
I think-
default, our
like,
winging
I think,
endorsement.
I think No Strings Attached was Natalie Portman's follow-up after winning her Oscar for Black Swan.
That's
This is
hilarious.
that's the movie that she comes up with.
All right, Steve. The Wheel of Morality says you get to watch No Strings Attached.
Ooh.
Now,
So
I
All
was-
right.
hang on, I was paying attention, but these movies are so fucking similarly named. I cannot remember. Nate, which one did you want?
you wanted No Strings.
I wanted Friends with Benefits.
Oh, he did.
So I got the one. No, I wanted Friends with Benefits.
All right.
You got no. So it's perfect. I got the one I
I
wanted.
have to
That's
write
great.
this down, otherwise I'm gonna forget in 5 seconds. No strings,
No strings attached.
benefit. No benefits
Okay,
attached.
No,
can I make
no
this even
benefits
harder
with
for you?
strings.
Can I make this harder for you? Okay. So I have Friends with Benefits, which stars Justin Timberlake.
What's their name?
You
You're
have no
married.
strings-
Steve and I went the same route.
I have Friends with Benefits, which stars Justin Timberlake. You have No Strings Attached. Justin Timberlake was in the band NSYNC, whose best-selling album was
Oh,
No
no.
Strings
Oh,
Attached.
That's good.
no.
That's good.
Additionally, you have No Strings Attached, starring Ashton Kutcher, who is married to Mila Kunis, who is in
Who's
Friends with
in
Are you
Benefits.
Friends with
fucking
Benefits?
Jesus Christ. Guys, I'm gonna wind up
Also in Friends with Benefits, Richard Jenkins playing
Oh, he's
Justin
good. I like him.
Timberlake's father.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wind up like arguing both movies on accident. I'm gonna get halfway through and start arguing for the other.
Well, shit,
Steve's
I
gonna
forgot
watch the
which one.
Pelican Brief. He don't even know what's going on.
He's gonna watch the Pelican Brief. He's gonna listen to the NSYNC album, No Strings Attached, and make it a music review.
It would be even funnier if they had used the song "No Strings Attached" in the movie, and then Justin Timberlake is in a competing. That would have been hilarious.
Guys, that was a thrilling episode. I'm glad we have some real genre pieces this season. We've got the horror, we have a western, we have some real very
Some sci-fi, some deep
things.
sci-fi.
We have kids movies this season, which we've never really done. So it's kind of fun to bounce around to these different genres because in the past when we've been doing the filmmakers, a lot of them were kind of similarly themed and similarly styled. So it's kind of been fun to bounce around to different things.
Agreed. Concur.
Do you concur? I concur.
Well,
I concur.
again, we are Duel of the Greats. You can email us at duelofthegreats@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram. That is at Duel of the Greats. And you can find us on TikTok at Duel Podcast. We appreciate you listening, and we will see you all or hear you all next week.